We back at it again with my favorite, Michaelknotpalmer. You know, I got some questions for you. I always got some questions for you when we sit down, man. You know, I always gotta pick your brain sometimes, man.
My life is an open book, champ, like I always say.
So, I mean, a couple questions. First question I wanted to ask you was, what was it like inside the penitentiary? I know I've asked you this before, but we gonna it's something always new and a different day.
See, every day changes in the penitentiary because you can detect when there's drama in the air because you can feel the tension. Some days when there's programming and you got a full schedule you go about, but if it's moving slow, it gives time for your mind to play tricks on you because you start thinking about the streets, you start thinking about family, you start thinking about the loved ones, you start saying a bunch of things like I shoulda, coulda, woulda. That's
Mm.
why I always try to stay occupied and educate my mind because they say idleness leads to destruction. So I choose not to do that. I'm not going to say it's easy because it's easier said than done, but every day is a challenge.
Mm.
And once you realize that and you take control of the situation, that's why they say you got to do your time. Don't let the time do you. And that's how I dealt with mine. Stayed occupied constructively.
So, like, at the beginning of it all, um, before you even, touch the penitentiary, um, how was things like in your mind? How did you feel when you was told you was looking at a life sentence if you was convicted?
I'm not going to lie to you, man. The indictment started with a 6-count indictment. And in about 6 weeks, the lawyer said that the government is coming out with another indictment. I said, what? But he said, this one is serious. So the indictment went from 6 counts to 23 counts.
Mm.
I said, damn. And then when they sent it to me, I looked at it. I said, man, some of these things I wasn't even around. Then he said, hey, he called my wife and he told her, he said, look, they got one more superseding coming on. That's just for your husband. She said, what is that? He said, it's a kingpin charge. And it's under the new sentencing guideline for the 848B. And if he's convicted on that, that carries life without parole. He sent me a letter. He didn't even call me up, give me the courtesy of calling me. I had the same lawyer that Mayor Barry had at the time, Kenneth Monday. And when I got that letter, my heart started going crazy. First thing came to my mind was my wife and kids. How
Yeah.
are they going to deal with this?
Yeah. How did you tell them?
I called her, and she already knew before me, but she was calm. One thing I respected about my wife, I got my strength from her. She never showed no emotions through this all. When we got arrested, she never showed no emotions. She was stern, and I never understood it. But anyway, I said, I want to tell you something. She said, what is it? So when I told her, I said, look, man, they just came out with another indictment. He says, I'm looking at life without parole. They charged me as a kingpin. I'm expecting her. I thought she was going to get emotions. She said, what? And when I told her, and again, I was like, she said, look, we're going to fight it. That's what she said. I said, listen, man, I didn't have an answer, man. She told me we were going to fight it. I said, look, I don't want to mess up your life. Go ahead. She said, no, we're going to fight it. And I said, I love you. She said, I love you. And then I hung up. And I ain't going to lie to you, homie. Tears came down my eyes, man. When I went back to my cell, I was the only one in my cell, and I lied down. And the tears fell down my cheeks, fell down my back, and I started just thinking about it. Not only did I mess my life up, but I messed up my family's life, my immediate family life. So that was an emotional experience for me.
Yeah, I know you had kids. How many
At the
kids did
time,
you
I
have at
had
the time?
I had I had 2 kids prior before marriage, but when I got married, I had my daughter. My youngest daughter was just born. She born 7 days, so I left my wife with 2 kids, 2 daughters.
So you had four
I had four
altogether.
children in total.
And when did you realize you have to, really do something about your situation? Like,
In prison, the penitentiary, A lot of people think because after you get convicted, you go to trial, that it's over. No, you have your appeal process. And even after the appeal process, there's another process called habeas corpus, 2255. That's where you argue constitutional violation, due process violations, if that was made in your indictment. In your appeal process, all the lawyer is responsible to do is make sure that he argues any law that wasn't applied, or if it was wrongly done, or was the indictment defective, and so forth. I used to go to the law library, and I used to sit there and tears come to my eyes because I couldn't understand to read law. And I realized that, hey, in order for me, because I read a book by F. Lee Bailey. F. Lee Bailey was one of the top-notch lawyers out of Florida. F. Lee Bailey said every trial had a loophole. I know my trial, and I know that a lot of charges that I got were called pile charges, meaning the government piled the charges up on your indictment to make you look more heinous than what it is. Deep down in my heart, I knew that I had to educate myself with legal work. And that was what I told myself, and that was my motivating factor, my wife and my kids. I had a fight, and I had a journey to do.
Mm-hmm. And in that process, with everything and over time, did your family abandon you at any moment? Or?
I had a lot of family, yes. A lot of family abandoned me, but my immediate family, my wife and my children, my aunt, my brother, sister, my grandfather before he passed, and I think I had one cousin, and my brother were there for me. Everybody else abandoned ship.
And I know this is probably like one of the hardest things, because you know you're inside, so you don't know really know how to trust someone. Like how did you go about finding a lawyer that was like real and had your back in your best interest?
You see, when you inside prison, it's just like on the street, word of mouth. You hear from other guys that deals with lawyers, who's good and who's not. At the time, prior before I was transferred, I was in USP Allenwood, and an Italian guy named Al Greco. He's another man's man. Al Greco was from Jersey. Al Greco and he respected Jamaicans. Al Greco stand on principles and morals and screw. Regardless of what a man is charged for, there is still certain rules and regulation in the underworld, in the streets. And this is something that myself and the drug counsel used to argue, because he said, Palmer, you're always talking about people that are child molesters, people that are rapists, people that mess with elderlies, and people that are government informers, but you guys sold drugs. How is that? And I told him, I said, you know what, that's right. I said, you're right about that. I'm ashamed of selling drugs. I'm embarrassed for saying that people call me a drug dealer. I said, but remember, it's two societies. There is the society of the working class, and there's the society of the streets, the underground. In the underground world, there are rules that are met. There are rules that are enforced. Number one is, you do not mess with an elder, you do not rape a woman, and you do not molest a child. These are things that's in the streets. And I know it sounds oxymoron, but I say that's what it is. So Al Greco, they would say that he's a gangster. I look at him as a gentleman, because he was very he was very respectful. He stayed by himself. He played his cards. He carried it. He never, his name, you see, in jail, a man's name go far. Your name is like a reputation. And your reputation is like fine china. You do not want to break it, because once you break that reputation, that name, it's hard to put back together. Al Greco was very respected, and he and I used to talk man to man. In fact, his brethren and his wife, I met them on the visit. He met my wife on the visit, and he introduced his friend to me. And Al Greco came to me one day and he said, hey, Nat, you got a drug case, right? And he gave me a lawyer named Margaret Crowley. Margaret Crowley was an ex-prosecutor from the Southern District. She had about 1,000 convictions of gangsters, kingpins, and so forth. And he gave me the number, and I called her. I left within lunchtime. I went and called her, and within that 15 minutes, I spoke to Margaret. She said, "You know what? I like you. You have a New York vibe." Because I was talking to her fast. She said, so she and I developed a relationship. She came up to see me. She looked like a cross between Sharon Stone and Jodie, and what's her name? Jodie, man, what's the other actress? Sharon Stone and Jodie, not Angelique Jolene, but I can't remember the last name. But anyway, I went back to Al and I said, "Al, thank you so much." And she was with me up until the point she died. And I turned her on to another Jamaican, and she left from me, and she went to see me in Lewisburg that same Saturday. So she was of the people. Now, a lot of prosecutors, a lot of lawyers, government, a lot of, when they finish, they go into private practice. And she told me, she said, "You're not a kingpin." I said, "I know I'm not a kingpin." She said, "I'm gonna get you out." And that's what happened. But Al Greco, I salute Al Greco, and I thank him to this day.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So like, I know you said that she had passed away.
Yeah.
And everything. So like, coming home, how'd you get home?
I was in McCurry at the time. Now I got transferred to McCurry, and what happened was, we were locked down, and I came out, and this was before she had passed. And I remember when I was let me move back. When I was in Hazleton, I was talking to her on the phone, and she said, "Look, she filed a motion in January, and then in July he denied it. It's called balling." And she asked me what she said. I said, "You got to appeal it." So she put the appeal motion in, and when I came back out, because every day we were locked in 23 hours, because it was lockdown, and we came out every other day, and I called her house. Her husband answered the phone and told me she passed away. I was devastated. But all what I learned from her, what I did, I went and wrote a motion, and I wrote it to the appeals court, and I wrote it to the district court. The reason I wrote it to the appeals court was because a lot of clerks in the district want to play judge and jury, and they were destroying pro se litigants' motion. A pro se litigant is when an inmate filed the motion by himself.
Mm-hmm.
So by me sending it upstairs, I know that they're not going to send it back to me, but they'll send it down the computer and log it. That's all I ever wanted, for it to be logged.
That's what's up.
When 11 days later, after I filed it, they reversed my case.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, I know that's all for today. I know y'all want to hear more, but we're gonna get back on another tip. You know what I'm saying?
I just want to say something too. I want to add on, right? I want to add on that prison, quite contrary how a lot of people think about it, it's a institution that you can learn and you can educate and you can better yourself. I had a choice, just like everybody else have a choice. It's either you choose to better yourself, and that comes by reading, researching, or you can succumb to your environment, getting high, lifting weights, and drinking, and gambling. Those type of activities, you're trying to bury yourself where you can forget about your reality. And the bad thing I used to tell dudes about it, you're getting high, you're drinking, you all might temporarily seem like it's okay, but when that reality wake up and time move by fast, because you can't retract the hand of time. There's a lot of brothers now that's calling me and reaching out for me to help them, and I can't help them. Why? Because they're procedurally barred, meaning that in the appeal process, there's a time period that you have to file certain motions. And if you don't meet those requirements, you cannot go over the hurdle. And so some of them is stuck until the president has changed the laws for them. There's people in there for the 851, the 3 strikes out with felonies. There's people in there for drug conspiracies, for sentencing guidelines, arguments that they didn't take advantage to file. So with that said, all I want to say is to those that, because I know there's brothers that watch this, they got the parrot, you know what I'm talking about. I suggest that while you're in there, brothers, you educate yourself, learn, better yourself. Do not walk around in groups and think that that's going to help you, because some guys got an outdate. I'm talking to guys that don't have an outdate. My outdate in my paperwork was deceased. But as you see through my perseverance, my tenacity, my consistency to fight for my liberty, look where I'm at. It took 34 years, but I'm here. With that said, I want to say, people, stand up. God bless you. And stay focused, man. Stay educated. Learn your legal work and educate yourself. One love.